We'd been to the 2nd Air Division, a convention in McAfee in New York, so we were slowly making our way back at a nice, easy pace. We decided we wouldn't fly at night, so I'd landed at Dayton for my first night stop, and then at Albuquerque on the second night. Our Grand Canyon really happened as a piece of luck, because I was talking to the American girl in air traffic at Albuquerque, and she heard my English accent, and she said, "Oh, I suppose you want to fly the canyon?" And I said, "Well, yes, I would like to do that." So she advised us then that I should fly the canyon first and then land at Grand Canyon for fuel, because if I went the other way round and landed at Grand Canyon and asked to fly the canyon, I would possibly be told no. So yes, we had a look at the Grand Canyon itself. But the instant happened, I'd refueled at Grand Canyon Airport. I was just back up to my assigned height of 10,500 feet on the airway on Victor 12, and we'd passed over Lake Mead, and I suppose we're about 70, 80 miles short of the Mojave Desert when it happened. It began, of course, we both realized that there was something coming in our 12 o'clock at us at high speed, very high speed, which at that part of the world, you're not used to them coming exactly head on, but obviously, again, you know, both of us had the experience of a military jet coming at us at a different angle at speed. So you were quite used to seeing what in 1 second was a tiny speck on the windshield, and within a second was a very large aeroplane. So, you know, we looked at it, saw the speck coming, but it came so quick. When we first saw it, we suddenly realized it was on top of us. So we pushed. I pushed hard. I was flying, and David, as my co-pilot, also pushed hard, and we vanished, as I say, under the coaming of the instrument panel. We were convinced that that was it, that we were going to have a mid-air, that there'd be an almighty bang, and the tail would go, and that would be it, and that would be the end of our flying days. But I mean, as I say, bear in mind, I was on the airway, I was under a radar service, and I had no warning of any conflicting traffic whatsoever. But then, of course, that was when, Graham, it started to get very odd. It went over the top of us, a large shadow, a very black shadow. It darkened the whole of the cockpit, and the sky above us, of course, was, as I say, was clear blue sunshine.
Was there any kind of shockwave associated with that?
No, that was the funny thing. There was no sound, and there was no shockwave whatsoever. A little bit of turbulence, but that could have been me pushing hard anyway. My first concern was to get back up to my assigned height before somebody started to ask us as to what I was doing. Yes, I mean, that was your instant reaction. Our other instant reaction was, well, you know, thank goodness, what happened? There was no bang. It's missed us. So yeah, it was. I wouldn't say fear. I mean, when it happened, we were both convinced that we were going to have a mid-air, because it came exactly at our 12 o'clock. We slowly came back up from under the coaming. I regained height, and we both said, "What the heck was that?" But then again, the mystery deepened, I think, because we both suddenly said, "There's something out to port on my side of the airplane." But we couldn't see anything, and yet we both sensed that something was formating on us. Something was moving. It started out of the peripheral vision, but certainly it was such a strong feeling. Both of us were looking out my side of the airplane. I think it was more than sixth sense. I think we both felt that whatever was there was moving so fast that the human eye couldn't actually register it in detail, but could register that something was definitely moving. We thought it was going, you had a sensation it was going up and down beside us.
Right.
But I mean, that sensation lasted so long, and it was such an odd feeling, and we were both convinced about it, that I said to David, as I say, you know, you fly the aeroplane, because I've got my camera, my still camera, back in the back end of the aeroplane. So I had time to unstrap, go back, pick up my ordinary still camera, come back, strap in, and we both said it's still there. So I took one picture, and then, as I say, we waited, and then suddenly we both said it's there again. We felt or sensed or could see a movement, but we couldn't focus on it. So I took a second picture. And I suppose that whole incident must have lasted for 4 minutes, I suppose. That was, so it was one of a 36 exposure film, of which we'd slowly taken. Most of the shots on that film were of the canyon, obviously. It had been sightseeing shots. The first one had nothing on it, and it was the second picture. I think the reason why we definitely took two was because we felt, because we felt there was something interesting happening. We wanted to have at least a second or a third shot. Maybe I should have taken 3, 4, 5, 6. But we wanted to check that there was nothing in the cockpit, like, say, an oxygen mask or anything else that was showing a reflection on that side window. And as you saw from the first picture, there is absolutely nothing that could have made that shape out of a reflection. About 3 days later, we went to a party at the US Naval Base at Treasure Island, and I took the photographs, as I say, there, and the US Navy officer asked if he could keep them for 3 days, and I said yes, as long as I can definitely have them back before I go back to the UK.
Would this be a senior Navy officer?
I think he was a lieutenant. So no, he wasn't. He possibly wasn't. He was about middle, as I say, middle ranking.
Yes.
As I say, I've forgotten his name now. But again, after 3 days, when we went back to Treasure Island, and he produced my photographs, but he just wouldn't give us anything. It was no comment, and we said, "Well, come on, surely you can give us something else." As I say, what do you actually think it was? No comment. I mean, whether it was because he genuinely didn't know what it was, or whether...
In which case, why couldn't he tell you that?
Yeah, quite. Later on in the evening, on that evening when we went back to pick them up, we were talking to a US naval pilot, and he was looking at the picture, and of course he said, "Well, I can tell you what the whiteness over the top is. As I say, that is vapor caused by a rapid rate of climb," which we could obviously understand that, and we thought, well, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. No, I mean, I suppose to be honest, it was semi-visible. In other words, it was moving at a speed where your human eye could sense movement, but it couldn't focus on it. But we were lucky enough on one shot, the camera actually caught it. Blurred, but it caught it. So, I mean, it certainly was a flying object. It certainly was unidentified, but it was definitely there, and it was solid. But the rest of it remains a mystery. Although as pilots, I suppose, as I say, one accepts that yes, there are UFOs, and I think our picture proved it. I think certainly, I mean, of all the, and on that trip back, we were making a widescreen story, but I mean, and that picture actually features in it. But nobody has ever queried it, and I think mainly because you can say, well, I have the picture, so I know what I saw. I prove what I saw. I can prove it. Here is the photograph. But it still remains a mystery. Nobody has ever explained to us as to why there was no sound, why there was no airflow or turbulence, and why we couldn't actually focus on it, why it didn't come and hover beside us and stay stock still, so we could actually see it in detail. Nobody's ever explained that to us, Graham, at all. Although some of your pictures and the analysis is intriguing, I think, of that photograph.